For security reasons, we hid our heroes in the video.
I don't know why I decided to tell this story. Maybe to finally get it off my chest, to rid myself of the burden I've been carrying for years. Or maybe to convince myself that I haven't gone insane, that what happened was real, and not just a figment of my sick imagination. Alex doesn't believe me. He says I was just tired, that it was a dream. That my imagination ran wild because of loneliness and the autumn darkness, because of the silence pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. He says I see things that aren't there, that I exaggerate, that I am crazy. But it wasn't a dream. I know it. And even now, every time I recall that night, a chill runs through me. Not the ordinary cold you feel in winter, but a cold that seeps into your bones, freezes your soul. A cold that has nothing to do with drafts or air temperature, but comes from somewhere inside, from the dark corners of my memory. I still live in this house. Alex is here. But every time he leaves for his shift, when I'm left alone, I turn on the lights. In every room. I place candles around, light the fireplace, trying to push back the darkness that seems eager to consume me. Not because I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of what might come from it. It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Alex is a firefighter, and I'm used to being alone. Our house stands outside the city, on the edge of the forest. It was my choice. I had always dreamed of living closer to nature. Fresh air, silence, no neighbors. I wanted to escape the city hustle, the noise, the people. But there is something deceptive about silence. When you are alone with it, it feels like it breathes. Like it's hiding something. Like it's watching you, waiting for the right moment. That night, I was home alone. I made some tea, took a book, and wrapped myself in a blanket. It was cold outside, autumn had taken hold, and the forest beyond the window seemed even darker than usual. The wind howled through the branches, like a ghost mourning its loss. Rocky was dozing by the fireplace. The flames danced, casting shadows on the walls, shifting and changing, almost alive. I felt safe, warm, cozy. Then he lifted his head. At first, I didn't pay attention. I thought he had just heard something. Maybe the rustling of leaves or a mouse scurrying. But then he started whining. Not softly, as he usually did, but loudly, anxiously, as if sensing danger. His fur bristled, and his eyes filled with fear. I looked up from my book. "What is it, boy?" Rocky didn't respond to my voice. His ears were perked up, his tail lowered. He stood by the door leading to the terrace, staring intensely into the glass. His gaze was fixed on the darkness, as if he saw something I couldn't. I sighed, put my book down, and walked over to him. "Do you want to go out?" I opened the door. Rocky bolted into the darkness. He disappeared into the forest as if he had never been there. I could hear him barking, but his bark sounded strange, as if he was trying to warn me about something. I closed the door and returned to my chair. But something felt off. I felt that something had changed. I couldn't focus. I stopped reading, just staring out the window, trying to make out anything in the blackness of the forest. But there was only darkness, impenetrable, like ink. Only a few minutes passed. Scratching at the door. I flinched. Rocky? So soon? I stood up and walked to the door. Rocky stood behind the glass. His silhouette was correct, familiar. But something was wrong. I couldn't immediately tell what it was. It was more of a feeling than a realization. A feeling that this wasn't my Rocky, that it was someone else, something else, pretending to be him. Something about his posture. The way he looked at me. His gaze was cold, alien, as if he were looking through me. I reached for the lock, and out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something, a face, human-like. Pale, with dark eyes, staring at me. Rocky? He didn't move. He just stared at me. His eyes, they were too intelligent. I felt my heart begin to race. I felt the cold seep into me from within. He barked. Once. But it wasn't a normal bark. It sounded like laughter, a low, hoarse, eerie chuckle. "Sit," I whispered. He sat. A shiver ran down my spine. I knew this wasn't my Rocky. This was something else, something that could read my thoughts. "Lie down." He lay down. I stared at him, trying to find something familiar, something that would remind me of my Rocky. But there was nothing. Just emptiness, coldness, otherness. "What are you?" I barely whispered. My Rocky had never obeyed commands. He was independent, stubborn, alive. But this was something else. And then, he smiled. It wasn't a normal dog's grin. It was a smile that stretched his muzzle unnaturally, revealing sharp teeth. His eyes darkened even more, as if black holes had formed in them. I froze. I couldn't move. And then he stood up and walked away. Just turned around and vanished into the darkness. I stood by the door, not breathing. I felt the cold gripping me from within, felt my heart pounding, felt my fear. Something heavy settled inside me. I knew something terrible had happened, that something had changed forever. I don't know how much time passed. Eventually, I simply picked up my phone and called Alex. "Is everything okay?" he asked. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't explain what had happened. I was afraid he would think I was crazy. I stayed up until dawn. Kept the lights on. Didn't open the door. I felt something watching me from the darkness, waiting for me to make a mistake, to let my guard down. Rocky returned in the morning. Normal, cheerful, just as always. He wagged his tail, jumped around me, licked my hands. I rushed to him, hugged him, felt the warmth of his fur, his familiar scent. But even in that warmth, I felt the cold creeping inside me. Because whatever stood at my door that night, it obeyed me. Because it wasn't him. Something had taken over his form. And when it realized I wouldn't let it in, it simply left. I don't know what it was. And I pray to God that I never find out.